No longer business as usual, and we're going to walk you through first just an update. As we've provided a lot of very detailed research on Herbalife to the public beginning in December of 2012. We came to a number of conclusions from that research. We said in the presentations, Herbalife distributors earn almost no retail profit. We said that Herbalife's compensation plan incentivizes orders, purchases without regard to retail demand. We said the real purpose of the nutrition clubs was to recruit new distributors, not to sell product. Participants in the Herbalife scheme, the distributors obtain their monetary benefits primarily from recruitment rather than the sale of goods and services to consumers. That's really the definition of a pyramid scheme, but we came to that conclusion. Recruiting rewards earned by distributors are substantially greater than the retail profit they generate. And we concluded that Herbalife mischaracterizes distributors attempting to build a business as retail consumers. And ultimately, the bottom line was that Herbalife was a pyramid scheme. And our view was, once the FTC launched its investigation, that one of two things would happen. They would either sue Herbalife and work to shut it down, or they would require Herbalife to make structural changes to its business, which would, while take a bit longer, ultimately cause the business to disappear. The settlement that Herbalife and the FTC announced on Friday, we believe, is actually the second scenario. We're going to go into quite a bit of detail on that settlement. So I'm going to turn over to Jenna just to summarize the FTC, and we're going to get into some more detail in the presentation.
So on Friday, the FTC filed a complaint against Herbalife in federal court in California. And we are, as Bill said, going to talk through the allegations in a bit more detail, but suffice it to say that the FTC announced and alleged that Herbalife has operated illegally, and they named a number of violations of the FTC Act. They fit into sort of three different buckets. Unfair practices likely to cause substantial injury to consumers. The nature of the unfair practices in this instance is Herbalife's promotion of participation in a multi-level marketing program with a compensation structure that's likely to harm its participants. Second bucket is income misrepresentations, making false and misleading representations about likely income to be earned from the business opportunity. And the third bucket is somewhat related to the second, false or unsubstantiated claims of income from retail sales, effectively that the company has represented, as have its distributors, that participants are likely to earn income from selling Herbalife products at retail, and that the FTC has found is not a substantiated claim and has been made in a misleading and false way for several years. In essence, the FTC's findings that are cataloged in the complaint confirm in every respect our long-held allegation that Herbalife operates as a pyramid scheme, that the only way that people make money is through qualifying purchases and recruiting others to do the same. Simultaneous with the filing of the complaint, the FTC filed a stipulation for settlement. This was also filed by Herbalife with an 8K. And this is effectively the terms of the settlement. So it's the complaint, which makes allegations of wrongdoing, and then the settlement, which follows with what's going to be done about it. What's the remedy in this instance? There's been much discussion about the monetary judgment component of the settlement, which was $200 million. But we're going to talk in some more detail about the injunctive relief, which really is the core of the settlement. And I think it's fair to say that the terms of the settlement are pretty extraordinary. Really sweeping reforms of Herbalife's business model. The key elements of that include a limitation on compensation paid to distributors. So all compensation paid to distributors going forward has to be based on verifiable, profitable retail sales. And we'll talk in more detail about the specifics of that in a bit. There's also an 80% demarcation where if compensation levels are less than 80% of net sales, meaning if the compensation paid based on retail sales falls under an 80% threshold, then there are meaningful limitations in the compensation the company is permitted to pay. So present comp levels remain only if they hit an 80% figure, which is very significant. Qualification purchases are no longer permitted. This is a main concern of a pyramid scheme, that people are incentivized to buy just to qualify, and regardless of consumer demand. That's not going to be permitted anymore for Herbalife. Prohibitions on misleading income claims. And very significantly, there's a provision for an independent compliance auditor who will serve for 7 years to be selected by agreement of the FTC and the company, overseeing the compensation plan changes, not other components of the settlement. The FTC will retain oversight of the compliance auditor. They can get rid of the compliance auditor if there are issues with how the job is being done. And just on time frame, the prohibition on misleading income claims kicks in as soon as the order is entered by the court.
Wasn't the order entered already?
So what's been filed is the stipulation for the entry of an order with a proposed order attached, but the court has not yet entered the order officially. It's expected that the court will do so relatively soon.
And one other question, you talk about misleading income claims. I know there were also some misleading lifestyle claims made. What did the FTC say about that?
So in addition to specific representations of the amount of money someone is making in a given month or over a given period of time, which now has to be substantiated and has to be accurate, there are also prohibitions on, using pictures to depict the lavish lifestyle that you can lead by becoming an Herbalife distributor. This is a common tactic, and we have some examples of that later in the deck. Those are also prohibited, and the company is also not going to be permitted, nor are its distributors, from making representations that people's failure to earn income is based on not working hard enough, not trying hard enough, somehow tied to their efforts. So there's sort of a whole bucket of changes in terms of the way that the business opportunity is pitched, relating to how much money you're going to make, what kind of a life you're going to have, and it will be a very substantial change from the way that distributors now describe the business opportunity to prospective participants.
Would you agree that these are the most comprehensive pyramid-related changes or structural changes the FTC's ever required in a pyramid case?
Absolutely. I mean, I think, we've seen, obviously we've done our own research on this, and we've seen commentary from a number of people who focus on the MLM space, lawyers who do, and former FTC people, employees, and it is by far the strongest, firmest statement that the Commission has made in this area.
Thank you. So now, interestingly, Herbalife stock price went up 22% in the morning of the announcement, and just want to review a few developments. Actually, I got a call from news media early that morning at 7 o'clock from the Wall Street Journal saying that they learned from a source that the government had settled with Herbalife, that there was a $200 million fine that was to be paid, and that the FTC had determined that Herbalife was not a pyramid scheme. And I was quite surprised by not the $200 million fine, which we were expecting, but this notion that the FTC had determined that Herbalife was not a pyramid scheme. I told the reporter that he should double check his facts. I thought he was being spun by Herbalife. The Wall Street Journal ran with the story, and there was a headline that the FTC had determined that Herbalife was not a pyramid scheme. At 7:50 in the morning, at 8:30, Herbalife and Carl Icahn issued press releases announcing their interpretation of the settlement agreement. They also announced Carl Icahn's approval to boost his ownership to 35% of the company. At 9:22, an analyst who's been, enormous bull on Herbalife said Herbalife shares are likely to reprice to 80 to 100, quote, all clear for Herbalife, and the stock spiked to almost $72 a share on the announcement. At 10 o'clock, the FTC began their news press conference with the chairwoman of the FTC, Edith Ramirez, and we'll give you some clips from that conference coming up soon, talked about the settlement, and was asked various questions about the headlines from the Wall Street Journal and other media that had said that they were determined not to be a pyramid. And the chairwoman of the FTC said that would be inaccurate. I do not endorse Mr. Icahn's statement. Then the settlement agreement was finally filed with the SEC, and then news media started correcting some of the misleading headlines. And at 1 o'clock, we issued our own statement quoting from the actual settlement agreement. Herbalife obviously knew when the settlement was going to be announced and had put in place a PR campaign that they launched contemporaneously with the settlement that included some public statements, among them this document entitled Stronger Than Ever, and this was a letter that was published in the Wall Street Journal and New York Times. The FTC settlement is an acknowledgement that our business model is sound and underscores our confidence in our ability to move forward successfully. Otherwise, we would have not agreed to these terms. And then he also says the terms of the settlement in no way change our business model as a direct selling company, but simply build upon current procedures. Mr. Icahn followed with a statement, and I'll just highlight the most relevant section. I encourage you to read the whole thing, but he says, the FTC settlement announced today, coming after a 2-year investigation, also concluded that Herbalife is not a pyramid scheme, a conclusion that obviously vindicates our research and conviction. Now, with these incredibly strong statements from the company and Mr. Icahn, the market and the media assumed that the settlement was a huge win for Herbalife. We're now going to go to a video clip. Let me just introduce it before we begin the clip. What we've done here is we've done kind of a compare and contrast between the chairwoman, Edith Ramirez of the FTC, her statements during the press conference about the actual settlement and the requirements under the settlement, and then we have clips from a video that Herbalife had prepared and released the same day to its distributors. Let me give you a little bit of context on what Herbalife is trying to do here. So one, they're trying to manipulate the stock price higher, and the reason for doing so is one, they want to keep investor support, but that's really a secondary concern. Their single biggest concern is distributor flight. Really in every pyramid scheme prosecution by the FTC, most recently in VEMA, the top distributors leave and the pyramid collapses very quickly. And what Herbalife is trying to do is maintain confidence among their distributors. But I think it's remarkable to compare Michael Johnson with Chairwoman Ramirez. So let's go to the video clip. It's 4 minutes long, and then we'll come back. Thank you.
The FTC has charged Herbalife with deceiving hundreds of thousands of hopeful people who saw Herbalife's promotional campaigns in English and in Spanish and signed on for what they thought was a legitimate and lucrative business opportunity selling Herbalife nutritional and personal care products.
Hello, everyone. Hey, we've got great news. We've reached an agreement with the U.S. Federal Trade Commission that ensures that our mission to improve people's lives will continue to thrive.
We've entered into what I believe is a very strong settlement that provides meaningful, robust relief for the consumers who were most affected and lost the most money due to Herbalife's practices. And we're imposing very strong structural relief that we believe will make a very significant difference going forward and will ensure that Herbalife operates as a legitimate multi-level marketing company.
The terms of the settlement do not change Herbalife's business model as a direct selling company and set new standards for the direct selling and multi-level marketing industry.
The settlement also requires Herbalife to revamp its multi-level distributor compensation plan so that, for the first time, the company must track retail sales to customers, pay rewards to its distributors based on those sales, and collect retail receipt information to ensure that those sales are real.
In a nutshell, the new procedures build upon a customer-focused foundation that we've already established.
This will change the current system's incentives that reward distributors primarily for recruiting a downline of people who will buy product at wholesale without regard to retail demand.
I have to tell you, this is really good news, and it comes at a time when our business is growing bigger and better than ever before.
The order will prohibit deceptive marketing tactics such as the promises of a lavish lifestyle and untold riches, and the false implication that typical participants are likely to earn career-level incomes.
There are 2 basic items to the settlement. First, members will be categorized as either preferred members or distributors. Most people sign up with us because they love our products and they just want to buy their favorite Herbalife products at a discount.
The vast majority of Herbalife distributors found they could make little or no money selling Herbalife products.
Second, distributors will qualify and be compensated based upon retail sales and will provide receipts for their transactions.
The company's own survey results show that the majority of people who invested the most to build a real retail business, people who leased space to open a nutrition club and worked long hours made no money or lost money.
Throughout the negotiations, we've been working closely with several Founders Circle and Chairman's Club members to best ensure that the terms of the settlement will work for you. They've given us great counsel and advice, and we're confident that we are well positioned for the future.
The small minority of Herbalife distributors who did make a lot of money were paid by Herbalife not for selling the company's products, but for buying the products themselves and then successfully recruiting large networks of others to do the same.
Our products, our service, and the opportunities we create all make us extremely proud of what we do and how we do it.
The company promised people a dream, a chance to change their lives, quit their jobs, and gain financial freedom.
We are a company and a community that really makes a difference in people's lives, and it's an honor to lead Team Herbalife. Let's rededicate ourselves to our mission of making people healthier and providing them with a unique business opportunity that meets their ultimate goals.
Did you review the language in their press release that sort of affirmatively said that they were not declared to be a pyramid scheme? Because they're sort of touting that as an outright victory.
I do not agree with that statement. The word pyramid does not appear in our complaint. That is true. But again, the core facts that that we've alleged and that we consider to be problematic with their compensation structure are set forth in detail in our complaint. And again, I will leave to readers to draw their own conclusions. But they were not determined not to have been a pyramid. That would be inaccurate.
Okay, so you don't endorse their statement in the press?
I do not endorse that statement. No.
Okay. Are the mics live? Okay, so let's go into some detail on the complaint. I do find that video really remarkable, but let's continue. So, basic conclusions of the complaint, all of these quotes are word for word from the FTC complaint, is that there's minimal to no retail demand for Herbalife products. Promised retail sales to consumers simply are not there. Self-consumption is not driven by genuine demand for the product, but it's the easiest and most convenient way for a distributor to get some benefit from the product. So basically, people are eating the product because they can't sell it. At best, discount consumers comprise 25% of total volume. Here's what they say: regardless of the number of so-called discount buyers, it is clear that collectively they could account for only a small percentage of the volume of defendants' products sold in the United States. Even using a grossly overstated measure of discount buyers, that is, counting as discount buyers the roughly 80% of participants who are not sales leaders, such distributors collectively account for less than 25% of the volume of defendants' products. The remainder, over 75%, is purchased by distributors at the sales leader level who are clearly pursuing a business opportunity. Again, the test for the pyramid scheme are the sales principally coming from retail profitable sales to third parties, or they people inside the pyramid buying to advance, and in fact, the FTC's conclusion was the latter. A significant percentage of total volume is merely qualification volume. Talks about participants at the highest status levels who must make monthly product purchases in order to earn recruiting rewards and the most robust wholesale purchase of Herbalife products. Such high-level participants purchase on average almost 8 times as much product per person as participants at the lowest level of sales leaders. Top Herbalife distributors have to purchase thousands of dollars of product a month in order to keep their qualification, and many do it on an automatic basis and design their purchases so that they purchase no more than they need to in order to qualify. What little retail sales exist are not profitable. Overwhelming majority of distributors who attempt to retail the product make little or no income. Nutrition clubs, they lose money and they're simply a recruiting vehicle. Many distributors find it all but impossible to make enough money from retail sales of product to cover the overhead of the club and generate income for the owner. Some nutrition club owners continue to operate their clubs for little or no profit or a loss for years. The promised retail-based business opportunity is simply not there. It talks about in the last quote, successful nutrition club owners make money not from retailing product, but from recruiting other participants who are encouraged to open their own clubs, buy more product, and recruit more participants. And again, without a retail-based business opportunity, what do distributors do? They do what they're incentivized to do, that is to recruit more distributors. I'll read the last one. Defendants' compensation structure incentivizes distributors to purchase thousands of dollars of product to receive recruiting-based rewards and to recruit new participants who will do the same. In the absence of a viable retail-based business opportunity, recruiting rather than retail sales is the natural focus of successful participants in defendants' business opportunity. Thus, participants' wholesale purchases from Herbalife are primarily a payment to participate in a business opportunity that rewards recruiting at the expense of retail sales. And this quote from the FTC is particularly important because this parallels all the other pyramid scheme case findings that they've had. This is the definition of a pyramid scheme. Vast majority of distributors, overwhelming majority of distributors who pursue the business opportunity make little or no money, and a substantial percentage lose money. Small minority receive substantial income, are primarily compensated for successfully recruiting large numbers of business opportunity participants. The rewards are concentrated among a very small number of distributors. Here's a stunning one. Income recruiting is low, even for many in the top 13% of all distributors. This elite group received average gross reward payments from defendants of under $300 for the year. So the top 13% of the recruiters made less than $300 a year. Herbalife and its distributors systematically engage in deceptive representations in numerous instances in connection with the advertising, marketing, promotion, offering for sale, or sale of the right to participate in the Herbalife program. Defendants have represented directly or indirectly, expressly or by implication, that consumers who become Herbalife distributors are likely to earn substantial income. In truth and in fact, consumers who become Herbalife distributors are not likely to earn substantial income. In light of their poor financial results, many distributors either stop buying product or leave the organization altogether. Retention for non-sales leaders, many of whom are pursuing the business opportunity, is even worse. So FTC definition of a pyramid scheme from their website. Pyramid schemes now come in so many forms that they may be difficult to recognize immediately. However, they all share one overriding characteristic. They promise consumers or investors large profits based primarily on recruiting others to join their program, not based on profits from any real investment or real sale of goods to the public. So by the FTC's own definition, Herbalife is a pyramid scheme. And what we've done here is we compared the findings of the Herbalife findings to the VEMA findings. The FTC chose to sue VEMA for being a pyramid scheme, and the impact on VEMA was it destroyed the business almost overnight. And the allegations are basically the same in that complaint, except they use the word pyramid scheme. If you note, defendants' promotion of this type of scheme, the last paragraph, often referred to as a pyramid scheme, constitutes a deceptive act or practice in violation of Section 5A. The FTC did not have the often referred to as a pyramid scheme language in the complaint. This was what the press focused on. This is what bullish investors focused on. And it was very clear that Herbalife negotiated away that language, those two words, in order to agree to a settlement. Let me just briefly comment on Michael Johnson's comment that they would never have agreed to a settlement that would destroy their business. Of course, it's good for the company. The answer is they had a gun to their head. They knew that if the FTC sued them for being a pyramid scheme, and those words appeared in the lawsuit, the distributors would immediately leave. And what they chose to do was negotiate a settlement with the harshest findings that the FTC has ever had against a pyramid scheme, negotiate out those two words, and then design a PR campaign with an attempt to just mislead their distributors and the market about what the FTC ultimately concluded. We think it's a nice try, but Herbalife has actually been shut down by the FTC. They just haven't realized it yet. So let's talk about injunctive relief. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenna just to basically summarize. Though the FTC was very, very focused on this, making clear this is a major restructuring of the business that is going to restructure its business from top to bottom. I love this quote, and to start complying with the law. This is the FTC on their website, an order that requires Herbalife to restructure its business from top to bottom and to start complying with the law, i.e. they have not been complying to date. It's no longer business as usual at Herbalife. Perhaps the most important statement is the one that came from the FTC after, in later part of the day, there was an article in New York Magazine by Michelle Solarier, and here she interviewed and quotes Lois Greisman from the Division of Market Practices. I think she's the head of consumer protection. She says the FTC settlement significantly restructures Herbalife, changing top to bottom how it does business. I'll get to her comment later in the presentation. But why don't we go to Jenna? Why don't you walk us through the requirements of the FTC in detail?
So the first section of the settlement agreement and the injunctive relief agreed to by the parties, and I think arguably the most significant component is a wholesale restructuring of Herbalife's compensation plan. Right now, Herbalife compensates its distributors based on their wholesale purchases of product from the company and the purchases of product of their downline, people that they've recruited and that their recruits have recruited. Now, Herbalife is only permitted to pay distributor compensation based on verifiable sales of products to real customers. Under the settlement, the world is sort of divided into three different types of people. There are business opportunity participants, and that's what you would think of as the current distributors of Herbalife. Then there are preferred customers. These are people who register to be, they register with the company solely to receive product discounts because they want to use the products, but they are not themselves permitted to sell the product to others, to receive any sort of compensation, or to recruit others to participate in the business. And then there's the third category, people who are fully outside of the Herbalife network. They are not signed up with anyone, but ostensibly, if there were retail demand for the products, they would be permitted to purchase them. So there are four categories of transactions now that distributors can be compensated for by the company, that they can get multi-level marketing compensation on. Their sales to people in the preferred customer category, sales to preferred customers in their downline, profitable retail sales of their downline distributors, and profitable here is defined as you would expect. It has to be that they're selling the product at a price point higher than the price from which at which they bought it from the company. And Herbalife has often used the concept of suggested retail price as the benchmark for what they expected their distributors were selling product for. In the FTC settlement, it actually has to be a verified sale price that's reflected in a receipt and that's provided to the company. So SRP is no longer the benchmark of what constitutes a profitable sale. It's the actual price. There is a category that's included here for limited personal consumption. Just a couple of things to note here. This has always been a moving target. Herbalife has attempted to reclassify its distributors and characterize them as just consumers, just people who are signed up to use the products but are not themselves pursuing the business opportunity. The FTC clearly saw through that subterfuge, and they now have limitations on rewards that can be paid on personal consumption. You have to designate at the time you buy the product whether it's personal consumption product or whether it's product that you intend to resell. And there are provisions in place that measure what would be a realistic amount of product for personal consumption. So it's more difficult to manipulate what that category should look like.
It's $200 a month. And
for the first 12 months, and then it
drops down to some average. But $200 a month is enough product over the course of a year. It's not, you can't be buying 2,500 volume points a month,
right?
And be using that as qualifying volume.
And as I said before, Herbalife is only permitted to pay its distributors compensation at the current levels if 80% or more of the company's sales fit into one of these categories of a
Jenna, let's put aside compensation for a moment. There's also a requirement. What is the 2/3, 1/3 requirement of their distributors? There's a requirement that 2/3 of the volume has to actually be.
Yeah, that's the relationship of the personal consumption relative to the profitable retail sales.
Just explain it.
Basically, at the micro level, there's a specific requirement that on an individual distributor basis, that at least functionally two-thirds of their volume must come from profitable retail sales relative to personal consumption.
Right, and the significance of this is that we found, but more importantly, the FTC found, based on the actual data, they had a subpoena, they could look at all the company's records, they could look at all the sales. There were no actual profitable retail sales, limited if any, and in fact, many sales were at a discount. So how are the distributors going to find all of a sudden that 2/3 of their volume is profitable sales? And we think they can't. So the FTC really set them up to fail. And again, here we sort of summarize it. We limit compensation to verifiable, profitable retail sales. I mean, the typical Herbalife distributor has basically tried, the ones that actually make money, dump the product that they're required to purchase, and then collect royalties from Herbalife, and that's how they make their living. Here, you can't get paid unless you're actually able to sell the product to a third party at a profit, verifiably. You have to name the address. There's a great piece by Matt Levine in Bloomberg where he talked about it's now more difficult to buy Herbalife product than buying a gun in America, and I thought it was a pretty apt description. Herbalife's now required to collect and maintain retail sales information with a high degree of detail and specificity. This is something the company said when we offered to, under the terms of the California consent decree injunction, from 30 years ago, they were required to keep retail sales information, or at least they weren't required to keep it. They were required to be in a position to ask for it.
Right.
The company, go ahead.
If requested, they would be required to provide it. They obviously were never requested to provide it, and the company at different points in time said that collecting the information from its distributors would be unduly burdensome, it would be too costly. At certain points in time, they said that they don't track the information, they don't think it's meaningful to investors. They said it could violate customer privacy, since Herbalife products are at least advertised as a weight loss program, and people are sometimes sensitive about such things. Ultimately, they had a lot of different reasons why they didn't do it, or excuses why they didn't do it. Now, of course, that it's mandated under the terms of the settlement, they are suggesting it's just a minor adjustment to the way that they do business. We think it's going to be a lot more meaningful than that.
Well, think about what's required. In order to sell the product, you've got to sell a white powder and a canister that's approximately 4 times the price of the equivalent product you can buy at Duane Reade. You got to sell it to a very large number of people you don't know. You have to sell it at a profit to the price you bought it from Herbalife, and then you have to get their name, address, phone number, email address, and you have to have their signature. So I think that's going to be an awfully difficult hurdle for them to actually find a legitimate consumer that wants to give their name to a fraudulent company.
The settlement also, as I said before, prohibits qualification purchases, or purchases just for the sake of qualifying to advance in the marketing plan or to reach a certain compensation threshold. Now they can't do this anymore. FTC clearly saw the same fact pattern that we saw. They either have to do away with these thresholds, or any thresholds that they have in place can only be met exclusively through profitable retail sales and sales to preferred customers, the same bucket of transactions we talked about on the last slide. There are new training requirements. I think it's interesting just to note that the training course that's now required before anybody who's a distributor can be compensated by the company, it includes a lot of different things. They're outlined on this slide. Now there's a component where the company has to teach distributors how to run a business and how to account for profit and loss. I think one thing that became clear to us in the course of our research was that a lot of distributors just don't really have an ability to keep track of the amount of money they've spent versus what they've taken in. So this obviously addresses that. And we talked some about the misleading income claims. Pictures like these, lavish lifestyle claims, are not going to be permitted anymore. And it's going to be a sea change for the way that distributors try to sell the products. There's also, just related to that, how the pitch changes. There are some examples in the before section of this slide that are from the FTC complaint of things that the company was consistently saying. Now, claims have to be truthful, and they also have to be substantiated. This is based on this documented, verifiable retail sales. Interestingly, the complaint and the settlement were filed on Friday, has yet to be ordered officially by the court, though that's expected soon. But the prohibition on misleading income claims is going to kick in as soon as the order's entered, and Herbalife is not off to a very good start. There are examples on the next 3 slides of claims by Herbalife distributors that are clearly barred by the terms of the settlement. There's one on this page, Martin Ernst, an Herbalife Chairman's Club member.
And just to remind you, the Chairman's Club are the top 50 people in the system. This is not some random Herbalife distributor. This is a guy at the top of the pyramid.
And they're named and specifically enjoined in this order.
Yeah, they're specifically, so this is an open flouting of the FTC's settlement. Again, we just found these, an hour ago, when this was printed, or 4 hours ago. Dream big, head high, go for it. Herbalife. This one, David Bevan, is he a Chairman's Club member or no?
I don't know.
No.
Not sure.
Top distributor. You see a Ferrari, a Porsche. Some very nice cars.
The settlement also has a number of meaningful restrictions on nutrition clubs. This has been a big growth engine for the company in recent years, and the FTC has concluded that they're a recruiting tool and they don't make any money. And in order to open a physical location for one, distributors are going to have to have been signed up as distributors for at least 12 consecutive months. They have to do a training course in addition to the training course that's required of all other distributors. And interestingly, it includes things like compliance with local laws. This is going to be, licensing requirements, health codes, tax codes, labor law requirements, and they also have to prepare a written business plan that meets specific, pretty detailed criteria.
So now, if you want to be an Herbalife distributor, it becomes more difficult than opening a McDonald's. And I think if you want to buy the product, it's more difficult than buying any other kind of product. These are enormous burdens that the FTC has put on the company. And really what the FTC appears to have done is given up the words sometimes known as a pyramid scheme in their complaint and exchange it for incredibly aggressive injunctive relief that will make Herbalife the least attractive multi-level marketing company to work for. And the result of that, we believe, will be, once the distributors understand the facts, we think there'll be, and actually that we've already seeing on the web, flight of distributors to other, or indications of flight of distributors to other multi-level marketing companies. So how is Herbalife attempting to mitigate this incredibly onerous settlement? And that is they're misleading the public and the investing public. And they, before the settlement was even announced, and again, this was, I talked briefly about the story they gave to the Wall Street Journal that unfortunately the Wall Street Journal ran with. But now they're even characterizing the settlement falsely. And here's a distributor. I love our company, simply the best. Report, the FTC has decided Herbalife is not a pyramid scheme. These are all over the web. Zach Tartle is the son of a Chairman's Club member, and so he's explaining to his downline, don't worry. So whenever the FTC does an investigation, there's always a chargeback fee for that investigation. This is a perfect example. General Electric just had the fee by the FTC like ours, so we're just like General Electric. The amount of the fee is dependent upon whether or not there are violations being done and also how bad the violations are. This was absolutely the best case scenario for us. That's why our stock soared when the FTC announced. So percentage-wise, $200 million is kind of like somebody making $100,000, paying back the government $2,000. It's nothing. We're writing one check. We're done with it. We've already moved on. We're doing close to $10 billion in sales. The accusations that Herbalife were a pyramid scheme were 100% false. How the FTC wrote the report is they used it as a template for all their MLM companies. So now the FTC is going to start looking at the other companies using our agreements to regulate them. It's an ideal situation for us because we designed the regulations around Herbalife, SCORE. The hearing was not just regarding Herbalife. It was regarding all multi-level marketing companies operating within the United States. So this is the son of a Chairman's Club member. I'm sorry?
He's the
Nephew of a Chairman's Club member. You can see how the distributors are being encouraged by the CEO of the company to mischaracterize the settlement. If you think about what is among the worst things you can do if you're a public company, well, it's one thing to mislead the investment community about your business. I would say it's even worse to mislead the investment community about the terms of a settlement with a federal regulator. Here's Johnson. The FTC settlement is an acknowledgement that our business model is sound. He's basically saying the FTC has given us the good housekeeping seal of approval. Carl Icahn, the controlling shareholder of Herbalife, now with the right to go up to 35%. By the way, I don't think Carl Icahn intends to acquire more Herbalife stock or go up to 35%. I think this is part, frankly, of the manipulation. I'll point out that he was allowed, he got permission to go up to 25%. He didn't buy another share. The FTC settlement announced today, coming after a 2-year investigation, also concluded that Herbalife is not a pyramid scheme. That's an entirely false statement from the controlling shareholder of Herbalife the day of the settlement. And then, of course, when you saw the chairman of the FTC responding to a question from the New York Times about Mr. Icahn's statement, and she said, "I do not endorse that statement." We put the video so you get a sense of her body language. The notion that Herbalife would not have agreed to these terms if they couldn't live with them, the answer is they had a gun to their head. It was either being sued for a pyramid scheme, which they knew for a certainty, which would shut down the company, or they figured they could mislead the public after the FTC, once they settled with the FTC. Unfortunately, the FTC apparently didn't get in advance restrictions on approving public statements by Herbalife. The good news is that the SEC regulates securities enforcement, and you have a CEO of a public company and the controlling shareholder misleading the public, and you can see the impact of the 22% rise in the stock price on the public being misled. And if you look at how this was done, it was clearly there was a PR plan. I bet there are emails, there are documents where they worked out the timing of the leak to the Wall Street Journal, the timing of Carl Icahn's statement, the release of the public video, I think very dramatic. The notion that this only impacts 22% of Herbalife's business, and I'll point out it's 22% of Herbalife's revenues, and that's just the U.S. If you go to the FTC website, it says the FTC works with more than 100 foreign competition and consumer protection authorities around the world, and cooperates with foreign authorities on enforcement and policy matters through formal and informal agreements. The FTC relied upon the analysis of the Italian competition. So the bottom line is the regulators talk to each other, work with each other. It was one thing when we met with regulators in other jurisdictions where a short seller was making allegations about the company. It's very different when the principal regulator of Herbalife, a federal, U.S. federal regulator, makes these kind of conclusions. That, of course, makes it easier for foreign intervention. I'll turn it over to Charles just to talk about the economic implications.
Just quickly to try and put some numbers around it. So it's true, it is approximately 22% of the business from a revenue basis, which is approximately $879 million in an LTM sales number. It has a 43% contribution margin, so theoretically the maximum total exposure is $375 million of EBIT, assuming that there's no kind of SG&A restructuring.
By the way, not everyone uses the same acronyms you do. So $375 million of their pre-tax profits, assuming no reduction in overhead.
That's correct.
Okay.
And so here what we showed in this chart is assuming kind of a range of degradation of profitability, and we put 200 million, 300, and then 375. How does that flow through to earnings? And so what it shows here is that you could reasonably expect to see under these scenarios $1.46 to $2.19 of EPS degradation. So that's earnings. Under that basis, the business trades at 20 to 27 times kind of pro forma earnings, which is a big multiple. And then this analysis doesn't assume kind of further regulatory action by other US AGs, by international regulators, and doesn't assume there's any knock-on effect on the international distributor network. Going kind of one step further, this is a little bit more nuanced, but the other thing we note is Herbalife continues to add back multiple items which we believe are kind of true ongoing costs to the business, and pro forma for the expected decline, normalized EPS is significantly below consensus estimates. So on the left side of this chart here, we have a bridge on 2015 earnings from GAAP to non-GAAP, and we show the items that they typically add back. We think a few of them are ongoing costs of the business, specifically expenses incurred responding to attacks on the company's business model, expenses related to regulatory inquiries, and non-cash interest expense. And so what we've done on the right side here is we've started with management's, the midpoint of their guidance, which is $4.58. And then we've kind of taxed them for those three ongoing costs. And that gets you to $3.76 per share in earnings. And then we flowed through from the prior page the potential impact from the U.S. Collapse and some nominal incremental costs from a heightened compliance regime.
And by the way, so I think the one thing that is totally wrong on this page is the $10 to $20 million incremental compliance. I mean, I think if you look at what's required in terms of distributor training, in terms of the collection of retail sales, the infrastructure the company's going to need to build in order to address that, these are real ongoing costs.
You can lump it with but the point being here is earnings could reasonably be, one, they're likely to be significantly lower than consensus. They could be as low as $2 per share or lower. And on that basis, it trades at 30 to 46 times pro forma earnings.
So in conclusion, in terms of our next steps, we're going to use the conclusions of the FTC to make sure that regulators around the world understand, after an incredibly thorough investigation, again, that's the part where I agree with Mr. Icon's statement that the FTC did an incredibly thorough investigation. I don't agree that they found it not to be a pyramid scheme, and nor does the FTC. And these facts under Chinese law, Mexican law, or European Union are sufficiently damning that there doesn't really need to be much more investigation to, in my view, for the regulators to take action in these markets. The other thing I'll note is the FTC has had an ongoing enforcement investigation of Herbalife that began actually a week or so after our initial presentation based on the company's own disclosures. And what's interesting is the company has spent the last several years saying everything that we said was totally false. We haven't had the chance to go back and look at every statement the company's made, but we picked out a few of them just for fun. This is Michael Johnson. We have millions of customers. 3 separate research studies performed by separate leading research companies confirm there are millions of Herbalife customers and that the overwhelming majority are outside the network. The FTC looked at the actual surveys, which the company was never able to release, and they commented how the problems with the surveys, and they were not accurate based on the actual underlying data. Then the CFO says, a large number of our distributors come in to make a little bit of money through retailing the product. They are single-level distributors not eligible for MLM compensation. We know that represents 73% of our distributor base, which means only sales leaders are eligible for MLM compensation. Turns out they're not making money. And same time, that interest in health is growing. We believe more and more people also value freedom to earn an income on their own terms, which is an opportunity we are very proud to offer. The company does not offer that opportunity. Our standards of practice for opportunity are industry leading. Our gold standard, our member training, our compliance functions, our disclosures regarding the income opportunity, and new member protections that begin before the new entrant ever signs up speaks to the rigor we apply to all levels of participation. He's bragging about compliance. They've been found to be a fraudulent company by the Federal Trade Commission. We can do much better than the statements we've identified here. I encourage people to go back and look at the press conference and analyst day the company hosted in January of 2013, a few weeks after our presentation. Look at what they've said to their investors, look at the impact that it's had on the stock price, and then once the stock price reflects the impact of the actual changes, think about just forget the regulators, think about the private plaintiff law firms and the opportunity they have to pursue the company for false statements found by the federal government. It's a roadmap for a private litigant. Think about the thousands of Nutrition Club owners that opened and failed, who were misled about that opportunity. That's another opportunity for private plaintiffs. So the company's ongoing regulatory and other costs, quote, defending its business model will continue until the business disappears. So in conclusion, we were a short seller, and therefore no one took us seriously because we had $1 billion short position. The good news here is the FTC is not short the stock. They had access to inside information through subpoena power. They came to the same conclusions we did, and the FTC did a remarkable job. We're short the stock, not for emotion, not for anything else other than we believe this is a massively overvalued company. We believe the company is worth, a fraudulent business will not survive. Requirement now, they've got to pay people based on third-party profitable retail sales that don't exist means this is no longer a place where a distributor can make a living. A top distributor can make a living. The others are losing money anyway, and they're going to go elsewhere. Now, while the company has maybe bought itself a few days or weeks or months by misleading the public, we do think the SEC and, frankly, the FTC is going to not be happy about the way the company has characterized the facts. This was the quote I meant to mention before. This was in a New York magazine article online. And she said the following. This was the article appeared at 5 o'clock, and the question was asked after the press conference and the events of the day. She said, "Here's what matters. As soon as the judge enters the order, we will be all over the company. If they are not in compliance with the order, we will take action. We will not tolerate what has gone on." And this is, I think, the head of, in effect, the head of consumer protection at the FTC. So we want to congratulate the FTC on doing a superb job here. We are past our normal call time. Any questions you have, please contact the investor relations team, and we'll get back to you. And thank you very much.